Hello everyone, it's Mommy Mo Hair Care, and I would like to show you how I created this cluster hairstyle. I call it cluster because there are sections and then there are more than one twist coming out of some of the sections. So I said, okay, let me just do a very brief tutorial on how I created this hairstyle. So let's go. So first, I sectioned her hair into 6. So first into half from like her nostril down to her nape, and then on either side 3 sections each, all originating at her earlobe. So that's the beginning point of each section, and then it runs to the middle big section. Okay, this is hair that has been washed, that has been conditioned, moisturized, and I'm going to be applying the hair butter as I create the hairstyle. So now this is the first cluster I've done, or the first 2 clusters I've done on the right side and on the left side of her hair. And as you can see, 2 clusters are coming out of one section. All right, now I didn't just randomly separate the hair to create these clusters. There's a method to how I did this, which I feel is better in terms of technique, so that I don't just indiscriminately pick hairs. All right, so I'm going to show you in this. Now this is the second section on one side of her head. I'm using my fingers to separate the section into 2. I always advise use your fingers, your hands as much as possible. Now some of you may have used a comb to do this, but I don't really see it as necessary. You can just use your fingers, and of course it creates less pain on the scalp and less discomfort to your child. And here at Mommy Mo Hair Care, we're all about grooming gently, grooming safely. All right, so in the first section that I separated, I'm going to twist that section. So you can see that there's a clean part, even though it was just my hands I used. Now I'm going to twist up this section. Okay, I'm going to twist up. I've applied some hair butter to the head. I already had some leave-in conditioner in it, and I'm just going to use my hands, try to get 2 equal sections, so that as I'm twisting, I will not need to borrow hair all the way down to the end. If you don't separate the portion that you're twisting into equal halves, or as equal as possible, because it might be possible to get it to be 100% perfect, but you need to do that. You need to try to get it as equal as possible, so that you twist all the way down to the end without needing to borrow hair from one section to the other. Borrowing hair has its disadvantages, because when you are taking down the hairstyle, if you're not careful and you unravel too harshly, you end up splitting the hairs. Okay, so it's better to try to get the sections you're twisting as equal as possible. So I've done one side. Now I'm going to do the second side. I'm going to twist it all the way down to the end, and then you will see how I create my cluster. Now after creating these 2 twists, I'm going to take an oiled rubber band. I place emphasis on oiled. Now I'm going to securely or firmly grip those 2 twists together, and then secure them with the oiled rubber band. And as you can see, I only looped 3 times. I do not do a maximum, I do not exceed 3 loops whenever I'm using rubber bands for my children's hair, and I always try to make sure that the base is loose. It is not pulling tightly. I don't need it to be very, very sleek. The hair is still going to unravel. Okay, so that is how I created that cluster. Now for this side of her hair, like the last section, this the section close to her ear, I have decided not to put that in a cluster. Why? Personally, I feel if I was going to put that in a cluster, it means I would have about 3 twists coming out of one cluster, which means that when I'm going to put all the 3 twists into one cluster, I may pull a bit too much on this side, which is near her ear and which is close to her temple. Now, the edges of your child's hair are very fragile. So are yours. In fact, for most people, the edges of their hair are the most fragile parts of their hairline. All right, so it is important that we want to put as little tension as possible. So I'm leaving this one as a standalone twist because I don't want to add it to the cluster I'm going to create at the top of her head. It will mean that there will be a bit more tension on this side of her hair, of her scalp, the side just above her ear and by her temple region. So I'm going to leave this as a standalone section so that there's absolutely no tension whatsoever on this side of her head. Remember, we're all about grooming gently, grooming safely, handling safely in a way that your child will not be uncomfortable. Okay? Now I'm going to create the cluster at the top of her head. I have separated the top section into 2 portions, as you can see. So, and I'm using my hands again, and I'm just going to go through the motions. Okay, I'm just going to twist all the way down, get the second section that you can see that is undone. I'm going to twist that all the way down, and then I'm going to cluster it and then secure with an oiled rubber band. You may be wondering why I'm oiling the rubber bands before I use. If you've been following Mommy Mo hair care for a while, you would understand that when you oil rubber bands before using it, it prevents snagging. It prevents the rubber band from snagging the hair strands. So the oil helps the rubber band to just sit and slide against the hair strands, as opposed to holding onto it or gripping it too tightly. Okay, and please, when you want to take down this type of hairstyle or any hairstyle where you involve the use of rubber bands, I would advise that you snip them off at the point of where you secured them. Use a small nail scissors to separate one side of the rubber band and snip off, or use a rubber band cutter. All right, so now I'm going to twist this section up, and then I'm going to cluster it, and then you'll see the finished, because I did the exact same thing on the other side of her head. So this side has some portions that are clusters and some that are standalone, and I repeated the exact same thing on the other side. And if you also notice, I didn't make very tiny sections. These are medium-sized / chunky sections, or rather medium-sized sections. Okay, so I don't have too many twists on either side of her head, and I don't have too many twists all over her head, meaning that when it is time to take down the hairstyle, it is not going to take us a lot of time. She's not going to spend hours for me to unravel this hairstyle from her head before we can proceed with whatever it is we're going to do next. Okay, so we don't have too many sections, which means that it was pretty quick for me to install this hairstyle. It was pretty easy. It's virtually painless, as you can see. It's literally painless, and it's literally tension free. Okay, again, whenever you secure your twist into clusters, please make sure that the base is not secured tightly. If it's tight, you need to ease the rubber band back a bit, as you have seen me do, so that the base is loose. If it is too tight, your child will have bumps on her scalp. For some kids, some of these bumps end up being filled with pus, and then you just have issues which are actually avoidable. Okay, so take the cluster, use an oiled rubber band, and I do not loop more than 3 times. In fact, in some cases I loop only 2 times, depending on what part of the scalp or how small or how large the section is. Okay, you can see me adjusting the base because it must not be pulled tightly. It needs to be loose. Twists are virtually the best tension-free styles, but there's a way to make them to have tension if you use rubber bands at the base and you secure it too tightly. So this is the style all done on one side, and then you just need to do the same thing on the other side, and there you have it. This is nice, simple twist cluster hairstyle, if I can call it that, because I don't know what other name to give it, but I think it's a beautiful style that you can do for your child. She can take it to school, she can take it for outings. Easy to install, easy to take down. Thank you for watching.